The St. Louis Blues beat the Boston Bruins 4-2 in St. Louis to even the series out at 2-2 apiece. And we now go back to Boston for Game 5 coming on Thursday. Now, I was watching Sportsnet, and they just had this little promotion with Sesame Street, and they did some stats going into this game. So before it started, and it was brought to you by the number 4 with the count. So here we go. The Bruins scored 4 goals to start Game 3, their last game. They went 4 for 4 on 4 shots. I didn't mention that. I didn't realize they went 4 for 4 on 4 shots. On 4 shots. That's crazy. Torrey Krug had 4 points. And, of course, the Boston's fourth line were just terrific in that game. Now, Jordan Binnington for the Blues, his record after a loss, especially that was the first game he's been pulled in this playoffs so far. But in the 2018-19 regular season and the playoffs, his record is 12-2 after a loss with a 1.82 goals against average. Now, the highest power play percentage in the postseason with teams reaching a Stanley Cup final since 1977-78. I've switched lanes here, just if you haven't noticed. Number 1 goes to the 1980-81 New York Islanders with 37.8%. Number 2 goes to the 2018-19 Boston Bruins with a 35.9% success rate. Number 3 goes to the 78-79 Montreal Canadiens with a 29.4% rate. Big drop off there, huh? The 4th place goes to the 2017-18 last year's Stanley Cup champions, the Washington Capitals, with a 29.93% success rate. And the 5th spot is for the 81-82 New York Islanders with a 28% success rate. Now, let's talk about, they talked about some depth scoring here for both teams so far in the playoffs. The Blues have gotten goals going into this game, into Game 4, from 3 players. Shannon got 1, Tarasenko with 2, Barbashev with 1. The Bruins have 8 players with goals. Coyle's got 2, Bergeron's got 1, Marchand's got 1, Curley's got 2, Pasternak 1, Achari's got 1, Johansson's got 1, Nordstrom's got 1. You'll notice the whole first line there. You notice a lot of fourth line players there. Some third line guys. Coyle still lighting the lamp. That trade from Minnesota is looking better and better for them every day. Now, the Bruins playoff goal leaders so far are Bergeron with 9. And there's a 3-way tie. Marchand and Pasternak have got 8, as well as Mr. Coyle, who gets another goal in this game. Yeah, crazy. Now, was it yesterday, day before Game 4, Berube came out with, and I'll quote him here, he said, "We were the least penalized team in the first 3 rounds, and now all of a sudden we've taken 14 penalties in 1 series." I don't agree with all the calls. When Bruce Cassidy, the Bruins coach, was asked about the refereeing and his sort of response, he said, "We're not going to concern ourselves with the officials until they stink." There you have it. And there's some shenanigans with with him and the refs that we'll get to a little bit later on in the game here. Now, I also threw down some other notes here. Sundqvist is back from his 1-game suspension. Fabry is out. Vince Dunn is back as well for the Blues, which is huge after taking a puck to the mouth in Game 3 of the Western Conference Finals against San Jose. There's just a lot of wire in his mouth right now. He's setting off metal detectors everywhere. Don't go near a microwave, okay? Just play the rest of the cup first. And Robert Bortuzzo is also a healthy scratch for the Blues. Now, another point being up here that Krug has been a really important piece for the Bruins. He's been key for them on the power play along that blue line there. He's basically part of the motor that runs it. Tuukka Rask has 4 straight games going into Game 4 without giving up a first period goal. He's let in just 9 in the playoffs in the first period alone for a .954 save percentage in the first period of the playoffs. Now, Binnington, as I mentioned earlier, he got pulled last game, and he's got to have a rebound coming into this game. Everyone knew that. He gave up 5 goals on 19 shots in Game 3. He's now 6-2 in the playoffs after a loss. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into the period-to-period scoring stuff here. Now, St. Louis starts their fourth line against the Bruins again. Every game, actually, all throughout the playoffs, this has been happening for them. Shortly after they finished hitting everything on the ice and get off the ice, the Ryan O'Reilly Ryan O'Reilly line gets on the ice, and with 19-17, with less than a minute into the game, St. Louis goes up 1-0. Ryan O'Reilly gets a beautiful wraparound goal, very Gilmore/Gretzky-like, from behind the net there. And that was only the second shift of the game. Vince Dunn had a really big assist on that, and that was his first shift in the game. And then 3 minutes in to the period, the fourth line gets a second shift already. And Sundqvist just looked really physical out there. I think he belted Pasternak at least a couple of times. Poor guy. And then about 6 minutes in, it was mostly all St. Louis in and around the Bruins net, just pressing down low, cycling the puck. And they were just, it was hard for Boston even to get out of the zone. They were just jumping into the forecheck on their D, getting them to turn over the puck on zone exits. It wasn't pretty for the Bruins. And around 12:38 into the with left in the first period, the shots were 7-3 for the Blues. Now, but soon after this, the Bruins start to get some dangerous chances, and then bang, 6:46 left in the game. The Bruins tied up to make it 1-1. That's a goal by Charlie Coyle. There it is, his 9th. He's now tied for the most goals on the Bruins, and that was assisted by Zdeno Chara. Now, on this one, Chara just pinches on a play to keep the puck in, takes a hard shot, and Coyle gets the rebound and just dances in front of the net. No Blues player anywhere near him. Binnington doesn't really have a chance on this one, and he just puts it in. But then the Blues just bounce back, because at 4:30, a little more than 2 minutes later, St. Louis goes up 2-1, and this all started off a Paryenko takeaway in the defensive zone. He cut off a pass, and then he gets it up to Braden Shen, gets it to Pietrangelo, takes a hard low shot, big rebound. Tarasenko gets his hands on it, puts it in, his 11th of the playoffs. And the crowd goes wild. Now, throughout this entire period, St. Louis just looks so much better on the forecheck on this night as compared to Game 3, and it's still up to this point. Every shift that perfection line is on the ice, out comes St. Louis's fourth line, and it's pack mentality out there to finish the period. The Blues are just hitting. It's like all the Blue players are hitting all Boston players like at the same time. It's like a symphony of hits out there, and St. Louis just looks much faster. Not just in the last game, but faster than the Bruins in this one. The shots in that period were 13-9 for the Blues. Now, during the first intermission, as I mentioned, I was watching this on Sportsnet. Don Cherry comes on, and he makes some interesting insights here. He just says how St. Louis is not getting involved into the what he calls the dumb stuff after the whistle. As you might remember, I think like Perron was taking shots at Rask, and there was a lot of sort of dirty stuff going on, especially on St. Louis's side in the last half of Game 3 there. The other thing he mentioned was the one way to get to Tuukka is hard shots down low. and getting the rebounds that you get from them. And that's how, of course, St. Louis got that second goal. Pietrangelo took a hard shot on the net. Tarasenko had that big juicy rebound, and that was about it. Now, also for the perfection line in that first period, they had one shot on net and got hit 12 times. I don't even have fingers to show you how many times that is. 12 times. Now, second period. Let's jump into that. And which is a little less than 17 minutes left in the period. Chara blocks a shot. Like he reaches out to block it as the St. Louis Blues player is taking a slap shot or a hard wrist shot, whatever it is. And the puck rides right up his stick and into his mouth. And he just starts gushing blood everywhere. And he skates off on his own accord. He doesn't look like he's concussed or anything. Looks like he's calm. He's got his wits about him. But how bad is this going to be? Immediately you think of Vince Dunn, getting hit with a puck. Mind you, that was a slap shot, and he didn't even see it coming. But he's all wired up now. So, anyways, you hope Chara's okay, because now Bruins are down. They're down a D again in another game. And I wrote down here at 15:22 left in the second, Vince Dunn is just looking, speaking of which, is just looking very sharp defensively, offensively, everywhere. And you can see that Berube is switching. He's playing him on two different pairings. One of them being with Pietrangelo. He's giving him a lot more ice time. Now, the Bruins then get a penalty shortly thereafter for high sticking. Coyle goes to the box, and that was on Gunnarsson of the Blues. And Vince Dunn is out there again on the power play. He's out there in the penalty kill, the power play. Now, going into this kill for the Bruins, they've killed 20 of the last 21 penalties so far in the playoffs. And that one goal coming in the last game in Game 3 from St. Louis. Now, this ended up being a great kill. Another great kill by Boston. St. Louis, after that one, is now 1 for 11 on the power play in this series. Then I have here at 12:03, Chara still not back on the ice, still in the locker room, and they're still down 1D. Actually, they're now down They're now down 2 top D overall because Gritslick is still out with a concussion. Keep that in mind. Then Boston gets a power play here. Parenko sort of gets hit by Marchand of all people, and that's in his own zone. He's trying to get rid of the puck. He sends it over the glass. It's a delay of game, and then we're into the and you're like, oh no, what's the Blues? 4 for 4, remember? But O'Reilly, on a really great individual chance, shorthanded chance, almost scores one on this. Again, he just looks like a man possessed out there. And their PK is just so much better. And you could tell they really missed a Sundqvist out on that one. And they kill it. Boston does look like they get some dangerous chances, but it's also a technically good kill by the Blues. Now, after that kill, St. Louis is just all over Boston. They're pinning them in their own zone for minutes at a time. Dunn and Riley on one shift were just everywhere. And after a few minutes of pressure, Boston gets tired, and then they take a penalty. Clifton, now this is a bit of an iffy one. I only keep on when you say Tony Clifton. Clifton gives Tarasenko a hit to the head. Now, he just kind of catches him, and the way it goes down, maybe I need to see that again, but it looked a little iffy when it happened. Maybe I think he might have just barely grazed him, and Tarasenko kind of maybe sold it a little bit. But this is when Cassidy's on the bench just clapping away to the refs. He's really not impressed, especially after that quote from Berube the day before. Now they go to a commercial break. They come back. Blues are on the power play, and this is like with 5 minutes left in the second period. Boston scores shorthanded to make it 2-2. and everyone's stunned. The Blues on the ice are stunned. The crowd is stunned. I'm stunned, and this was a goal by Carlo. That's his first of the playoffs, shorthanded, and that was assisted by Bergeron Marchand. Marchand gets the puck to Bergeron. Bergeron takes a slap shot on net. Carlo was there. No one covering him at all on the penalty kill. No one's covering him and the defenseman. And Rask has no chance. Binnington has no chance. He gets a piece of it with his glove, but it's from one side of the ice to the other, and it's in. But that's the fourth time in the playoffs that the St. Louis has allowed a shorthanded goal. And during the whole 2018-19 regular season, they only allowed 7. And as bad as they were up until January, remember that. Now, moving along here, Boston scores that shorthanded goal, and it's just like, what a waste. Blues have just been, mopping the Bruins up for most of this game, really, with some odd chances here and there for Boston, but it's like, what a waste that is. But right afterwards, it's not like it sucks the wind or knocks the wind out of St. Louis. They just go right back to hammering the Bruins, and they're still looking good after something that could be as deflating as that. And then that's the end of the period. The shots were 12-10 for the Blues. Again, taking the advantage on the shot chart. Now we go to the second intermission with the panel of insiders there, and they talk about a bunch of things. So bear with me about St. Louis on that marathon shift I was talking about when they pinned in Boston in their own zone, came right after Chara got that puck to the face. And Rask really did his share to keep Boston in that game. He played really well. Now, this was interesting about that shorthanded goal because Boston got lucky on the penalty kill. Because when they took that penalty to go down and play off that questionable call from, who was it that hit Tarasenko in the chin? I can't remember now. In any case, as soon as after that penalty was called, they went to commercial. So when the penalty kill came to the ice, everyone was rested, everyone was ready to go, and that's like seconds after play started up again, that's when the shorthanded goal was scored. So a little luck for Boston there. Now, they also mentioned how the Bruins are playing with more passengers than the Blues. Everyone on the Blues is just engaged at this point, including the D, who just seemed to be a lot more active in this game. They mentioned how Sanford is looking really impressive in his second game back, and he's just laying the body hard on a lot of players, and he's even getting chances in the game. And still, no Chara for the entire rest of the second period. Now, getting to the third. Let's start with the third. This is turning into a long video. Oh, my God. Now, Chara comes back. He's sitting on the bench to start the third period, but he's got the face mask on, and we're wondering, okay, well, the commentators mentioned, how's this going to work for him? Because especially when guys look down, when they got the face mask on, it's hard to see where the puck is, if it's at your feet or something, especially if you're like 6'7" or 9 or whatever he is. So, now St. Louis comes out a little sloppy in this one, but the Bruins take a penalty. Not even 3 minutes into the third, Heinen goes off for tripping, and during this kill, there's just after a whistle, Marchand gets his stick on Binnington, and Binnington kind of sells it and goes down afterwards. That's about 17 minutes left in the game. But no call. There was no penalty called on it, and I think Marchand was looking back at him annoyed, calling him a diver or whatever. But Bruins kill the penalty. And did I mention the Bruins have a great penalty kill as well? Yeah. Anyways, so St. Louis then gets a penalty here around 12:40 left in the game, and this is Bouwmeester for a high stick. Now St. Louis kills it off. But what do I have mentioned here? Now Chara, it's now 12 around 12:25 left in the game now, and Chara still hasn't played, hasn't got on the ice. He's just been working the door from the bench, maybe to help motivate his players. I don't know And he doesn't end up, a little spoiler here, I don't think he ends up playing the rest of the game. No, he didn't. And the last 10 minutes of this game, the refs were just, after this, they were just letting everything go. It started to get a little nasty there. A lot of heavy hitting was going on. It was fun to watch. It was really fun to watch. And then, I want to say, with 9:22 left in the game, St. Louis scores. O'Reilly gets his 5th of the playoffs. That's assisted by Pietrangelo and Gunnarsson. And the way this goes in is familiar because this is a hard slap shot. Again, from Pietrangelo, down low on Rask, rebound, Riley in. So, Don Cherry wasn't wrong about that. And it was sort of a transitional goal, going from one side to the next. Now, this was Rask has now giving up 3 goals on a road game for the first time since the Toronto series in Game 4. Interesting little stat there for you. So that just goes to show you how good he's been this entire time. Then with 4 minutes left in the game, and St. Louis is still, they're just not letting up. They're pinning the Bruins in their own zone for long periods of time. At around 1:50 left in the game, the Bruins pull Rask, but St. Louis scores on the empty netter. And this is a really nice individual effort by Schenn, who strips the puck from a Bruins player, and he just doesn't miss. He scores on the empty netter and to make it 4-2 for the Blues, and that's his 4th of the playoffs. That was unassisted on that one, and that's pretty much the game, really. There was a couple of coincidental penalties that came in the last minute or so with Krug for slashing and Bouwmeester for elbowing. A little bit of nastiness there that I'm sure will carry over to Game 5. But now we wonder, will Chara or Grzelcyk, for that matter, be back for Game 5 in Boston? That's going to be a big one for the Bruins. That'll be quite a hefty loss if they're missing one, and especially both, especially their captain. And this St. Louis win is their first Blues win in St. Louis in the finals. Because, of course, in 1970, against the Bruins when they got swept. Do I have to finish that sentence? I don't know. They didn't win a game. There you go. That's all the notes I had. The overall shots were 38-23 for St. Louis in this. The goaltending stats, Tuukka Rask gets the loss, saves 34-37, with a .919 save percentage. Binnington saves 21 of 23 with a .913 save percentage. Now, the 2 goals he let in, I don't blame on him at all. He had no chance on those, really. But he did kind of look a little shaky. Like, his rebound control wasn't exactly great in this game. It did make me a little nervous every time Boston went near the net. So they might keep that in mind going into Game 5. We'll see. But hey, he did have a good game. Another rebound game for him. So he's now 13-2 after a loss. The stars. The third was Zach Sanford, who had, for the Blues, who had 1 assist. He was a +2, had 10-18 of ice time. Second star was Pietrangelo with 2 assists, a +3, and 29-37 of ice time. Wow. Ryan O'Reilly was your first star with 2 goals. He was a beast all game. He was a +2 and only had 17:43 of ice time. Seemed like a bit more, but they play their 4th line so much as well. Some other stats we have here during the match. The hits were 44-41 for the Blues. This is a great game to watch. I love hitting in games, and there was no lack of it there. The faceoffs were 34-31 for St. Louis. It's a little back and forth. Boston wins the faceoffs in one game, St. Louis the other. They both got a lot of good faceoff men. Penalty minutes, Boston had 8, St. Louis 6. Of course, Boston went 0-2 on the power play. Wow. St. Louis, impressive PK. I guess Sundqvist helped, and so did Dunn. But St. Louis, of course, went 0-3 on the power play, not having much luck there. The giveaways were 9-6 for the Blues. The takeaways were 15-9 for St. Louis. They did really well in that category. The block shots were 15-7 for the Bruins, and there you have it. There it is. I don't think I'm missing anything this time. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's a super long video. As always, I live to hear your thoughts and opinions on what happened, what you think's going to happen next game, who's going to play for these for Chara and Grzelcyk going in. It looks iffy there. Hit like if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hey, if you happen to have any Hockey Geek friends, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.